if they just call it as is, can these nations complain? I suppose that's the big question. Hello everybody who has joined us and is watching, whether that's on Twitch or on YouTube. It is great to have you with us. We are here to talk the future of Oceanic football today. Why the future of Oceanic football and not Oceania football? Well, that's because apparently Oceania is the most difficult word to spell. Did you know that there's the secret I before the A?
Yes, I did. I clocked your social posts, and to be fair, mate, the first thing I thought was he spelled those incorrectly.
He has spelt it wrong.
But you live and learn. You dust yourself down and you go again. But yeah, Oceania.
Oceania.
That's what we're talking Oceania today, which I'm excited to do. It's one of our favourite regions, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like we say that about every region, but genuinely, Oceania is one of our favourite regions, and it's a region that I feel isn't getting a lot of love on the world football stage at the moment.
No, it's not. I mean, it's probably one of the least well-known regions as well, because I feel like people jump to, oh yeah, what's that, Australia and New Zealand? And, you know, obviously the first thing to say is that Australia don't compete in the OFC because they're too good. So they compete in the AFC. But there's actually 11 nations. The book comes in handy again. There are 11 nations that compete in the OFC World Cup qualification because countries such as Kiribati, Tuvalu, Micronesia, they don't compete. They are not FIFA registered nations. So the 11 nations in a particular order from ranking of worst to best, we have the Cook Islands, who are actually unranked. Did you know this? The Cook Islands
I was going to ask you about
unranked.
this. When you said 11, I don't know what the situation is with Cook Islands at the moment, because they haven't got a FIFA World Ranking. Want to research?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they're not very good. Obviously, as to be fair, we could probably say about a few teams in this region. One thing about the OFC that we love, but we have to appreciate is, you know, I always feel like San Marino, for example, are like, what, are they 210 in the world? Are they the worst ranked team in the world? They would comfortably beat a lot of these teams, despite them being ranked higher, because of course they play the likes of Italy, France and England, whereas the Oceanic sides primarily play each other. Tonga are ranked 200 in the world, and with the OFC there's a little bit of bunching in the FIFA rankings. So you've then got Samoa at 193, and then American Samoa 192, Papua New Guinea 164, and then Vanuatu 163, then Fiji 161, famously of course Roy Krishna being the main Fijian, of course plays in the Indian Super League, which starts soon as well. And a shout out to all of our Indian fans who have been watching since our SAF final preview. We absolutely love the support. I mean, it's come out of nowhere a little bit, but we love it. We absolutely cannot complain.
We certainly do.
And then you've got Tahiti, New Caledonia, Solomon Islands, all between 150 and 140. And then New Zealand are actually 121 in the world, which struck me as quite low. Did some research into this. Back in 2010, they were as high as 49th in the world rankings.
Wow! I did not know that.
That was after the South Africa World Cup, where they had the unbeaten group stage.
49th were they?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they drew every game.
So a decade later, and they're right back down. Now I wonder what's caused that. So that's really interesting that you mentioned that. I was doing a little bit of, I guess sort of swatting up a little bit before this call, just to sort of see what the lay of the land was in Oceania, who's ranked where, who's favourite, and obviously New Zealand's going to be favourite. But I'm much the same as you make that reaction. New Zealand 121. Sorry, you know, you did your shirt review on Palestine, who were 99th in the world. Palestine.
Yeah.
Lebanon are 97th. You know, so they are really, really far down there. Now, my thoughts with that is that, so they've gone from 49th, and I'm just guessing here now, they've gone from 49th, so there's obviously been a steady decline, but I would imagine their most recent plummet down the rankings must be purely to do with the lack of games that they've been playing in the Oceania region. Because basically how it works with FIFA rankings, if anyone's watching that doesn't know, you get given points based on your results through FIFA licensed qualifiers and friendly matches and everything, and then that determines your rank. there's far more of a science to it than that. Maybe that's for another video. But the fact that maybe New Zealand haven't been playing a huge amount of competitive games has resulted in them dropping to as low as 1-2-1. But wow, what a stat! 49th you say after 2010.
Yeah, 2010, of course, they reached the World Cup. They drew all their games in the World Cups. They were undefeated, one of the very few undefeated nations, apart from, I think even the champion Spain lost a game. I think there was a stat that New Zealand were one of the only sides that were undefeated. Of course, they went out in the group with 3 points, but still undefeated. And you've got to think, since then they have, the last World Cup, they did fail to qualify. They lost the inter-confederation cup to Peru, who then progressed. New Zealand didn't qualify. And like you say, we've covered recently tournaments from around the world, the Nations League in CONCACAF, obviously the SAF Championships out in Asia as well. There's plenty more Asian tournaments, plenty more African tournaments, European. There's all this. Oceania doesn't have that. There's the Pacific Games, which is almost like a mini Olympic Games, which doesn't just revolve around football. And the Oceania Cup, which was the tournament that Tahiti won back in 2012, which is why they then progressed to the Confederations Cup in 2013. Famously scored a goal against Nigeria with Stevie Chong Hui, if anyone remembers that.
I remember it.
That was incredible.
Nigeria, was it? 6-1
Nigeria,
defeat?
6-1 defeat. They did score. I don't think it was Stevie Chong Hui that scored, actually, now I've said that. I think that he was just the standout player.
Was it Tioni Te'ao?
If you've plucked that, then fair play. Fair play.
I don't know. Tioni Te'ao, it could well have been. Let's have a look.
But they did score a goal, which was great for them. But that tournament also doesn't happen very often. And the truth is, New Zealand, if they want games, they have to have friendlies. Recently they had a friendly against Curacao and beat them. A 2-1 win. Okay, not a comfy win. They didn't swat them aside, but it is tough for New Zealand and players from New Zealand to get international games, to get international caps, because this region just doesn't offer that for them.
No. And whenever they do have games against their oceanic neighbours, the big players don't even go back for it, mate. Because they are the quality. There's such a disparity in the quality between New Zealand and the rest, really, or for the vast majority of the rest. The likes of Chris Wood, Winston Reid, Brian Thomas scarcely make that journey back, and typically they play an under-23 side, don't they? And it's enough to beat them. So they did. They had a. I mean, that result against Curacao was good. We were speaking about that, I think, on a relatively recent stream, maybe about the side that New Zealand put out, and they did go full strength, and it was a good result. I think they had a friendly against Bahrain as well. Don't know what that result was, but it sort of sounds like that they are starting to arrange more competitive, friendly fixtures, potentially ahead of when the 2022 World Cup qualifiers will eventually come round.
I think it's not just looking ahead at the qualifiers. I think that they're looking ahead, and they already said to themselves, we're going to qualify. We need to get used to these conditions. The game against Curacao, the game against Bahrain, these games aren't taking place in New Zealand. They're not taking place in the Caribbean either. They are taking place in Qatar. They are getting themselves prepped for all the qualifiers, which will also be in Qatar, but also the tournament itself in December, of course, of next year. I think they're gearing up for it. They're playing a stronger side. But let's talk about these new qualifiers. So they've changed the format. It's not 4 different stages which eventually New Zealand play a few and win anymore. They've changed it now. Okay.
I was going to say, this was going to be a topic of conversation that I wanted to bring up with you in this show, actually. So just to kind of take a step back with these qualifiers. So the Oceania qualifiers were set to originally take place in September of 2020. It was delayed until June 2021, but COVID has essentially totally scuppered their plans. Due to the pandemic and subsequent border controls across the region, it basically means it's impossible to play these fixtures. Basically, letting X team from one country into another, it's just not been doable in that region. So the whole thing has been kicked down the road. So much so that the estimated date for when they play these qualifiers is March 2022. 9 months before the tournament itself, which is just bonkers, isn't it, really? Yet that is still pending FIFA approval, so we're really, really waiting to see what happens there. I was doing a little bit of a snoop around because, as you said, it sounds like they're changing the format, but I couldn't find what that new format was going to be. I wonder if you can shed some light on that. So the 2018 World Cup qualifiers, the format, as you normally expect from that region, is 3 rounds. You've got your bottom ranked 4 teams in round 1. Top 1 goes through. Round 2 is the 2 groups of 4. Top 2 go through, and then round 3 is that semi-final and final to get through to that inter-confederations playoff against another region's finalist, isn't it? But have you seen anything on what that 2022 format looks like?
Well, we have a proposed format, but I'm not sure how it's going to work. And I think the really interesting thing here is the plan is one big group.
Really?
Everyone plays everyone once.
Yeah.
And then the top 4 sides go into a 2-legged semi-final and a 2-legged final, which would then get them to the inter-confed.
Very interesting.
Obviously, all taking place on away soil in Qatar, where they would all, gather
and that's
together.
The proposal.
Yeah. So the thing that strikes me immediately about this is: are all 11 nations going to go? Are they going to bother? Because I look at the sides like the Cook Islands, I look at the sides like Tonga, Samoa, American Samoa. Are FIFA going to fund them going? Are they going to go themselves? Because the truth is, yes, it would be a great holiday for the players and it would be a great experience. But, Samoa got through of what we call the real minnows group last time out.
Yeah.
And then they got through to, like you say, one of those 2 groups in the first proper round. And they got 0 points and finished with a goal difference of -19.
Yeah.
There is that level of difference. If you jump from American Samoa in 192 to Papua New Guinea at 164, there are streets of difference in ability between those sides. I'm not sure they're all going to bother. It'll be interesting.
I don't know what. Now, your point on will FIFA fund the travel of those teams? Yes, they would do that. The question is purely on the football associations of those nations and whether they deem it appropriate, or if there's any point to it. You still don't know what their kind of COVID regulations are in each of those individual countries, and if they'll allow them to go away, to isolate for X days, to come back to isolate again. So you just don't know. There's a lot of logistical queries that are still centering around it. And what we speak about is it'll be a great experience for the players. They don't necessarily think like that.
No.
Do they? Some of these smaller international nations, their FAs, their football, so they don't think like that. So, and they might look at it and think, if it is all one league, well, we haven't got a hope in hell anyway of getting any kind of result. So, should we just swerve it? I have to say, the thought of a 8 or 10 or 11 team Oceania league, sounds great.
We're potentially moving to a 48-team World Cup. That means that OFC will surely get at least 1 place. At least. Maybe even 1.5, which would be huge.
I was thinking it'll go 1.5.
Yeah.
I was thinking it'll go 1.5, just because of, you're going from 32 to 48.
Yeah.
You're increasing it by 15%. You're increasing World Cup participants by 15%. So the fact that they're currently at 0.5, I just think that's a total guess from me there, by the way. But I just think 1.5. I just think it will. I expect the allocation to go up to that. So New Zealand. You would then say, well, New Zealand are then guaranteed that spot.
They are, but it's then more competitive for the second spot. And you look at it, and I know it's 4 years away. And I wouldn't want any of the players that are playing currently and have a shot at competing in World Cup qualifiers to be disheartened by a decision to not go. But is there much of a point this time?
Yeah. I know what you're saying, and you can't really argue with it too much.
No.
New Zealand are going to win whatever the format. it would be, you know, what would be so interesting is if they go, you know what, we actually logistically we just cannot do this World Cup qualification. Should we just put New Zealand through to the inter-confederation final? It wouldn't surprise me if it all boiled down to it. That I don't think that would be something that they'd rule out, and I don't think the other teams in the OFC would have too many complaints. The 2022 World Cup qualification, the 0.5 allocation, is going to be New Zealand that progresses to that inter-confederation playoff. For the 2026, if the allocation goes to 1.5, it does open it up. It really, really does. You mentioned a second ago about how you could almost cull, if they were to do it in a league format, you could cull it to 4 straight away. I think that's slightly harsh on a couple. I think 6. You've got New Zealand that are the clear top team in that region for obvious reasons, right? But then you do have a clutch of teams of similar ability, all with a huge sort of love and passion for the game that would, if this 0.5 of a spot opened up, they'd be fighting for their lives for it. Solomon Islands, Newcastle, Fiji, Tahiti, Vanuatu, PNG. Those are the 6. I mean, you've then got your American Samoas, Tongas. They'd be in amongst it and they'd play out the games. But those are the teams, those 6 I've just mentioned there, are kind of in that next grouping down after New Zealand. Get imagine that though, another 0.5 of a space, one of those teams potentially competing in the inter-confederations playoff game. It'd be incredible.
Which in itself is a lottery, and as they expand the tournament, you don't know what other regions are going to get a random 0.5 spot. You know, if say CONMEBOL gets given another whole spot, so they end up with 4.5 wherever it is, and Bolivia were to sneak in, and Bolivia is still a far better footballing side than the likes of, you know, some of these OFC sides. But you know, there's teams out there. We've already spoken about Oman and Lebanon in Asia. Now these, again, they're very solid footballing sides, but you never know. The romance of cup football, the romance of an inter-confed playoff. If a team really put a good side together, we see more and more now players from around the world that are able to represent these other nations. We, of course, are speaking to Mo Rajani on the show. Mo Rajani, born obviously in Oz, has a Tongan grandmother, so can represent Tonga. You know, I'm sure that more and more players pop up. You know, New Caledonia with its French ties. You know, there's a chance. There's a few regions that don't benefit in the same way that, say, CONCACAF and Asia have done from that demographic moving around the world. But, you know, there's sites out there that I'd love to see progress. I mean, you know, imagine in the 2026 World Cup qualifiers, New Caledonia competing in an inter-confed, or Fiji competing. It would be absolutely amazing. Obviously, you know, Fiji's main man, but can he wait another 4 years? Can Krishna wait 4 more years for international caps and an international shot at World Cup stuff?
I mean, he can. He's lucky, isn't he? He's the standout player. He's the player of a generation for Fiji. Roy Krishna. He's the greatest ever Fijian footballer. His achievements on sort of domestic football and what he's done within the game far sort of outweigh and go beyond anything that's ever been heard of in Fijian football. So, and because of that, I imagine he's someone that will be in and around that Fiji national squad for many, many years to come. It's a shame, you know, and we've spoken about a World Cup every 2 years and all of that. It's a shame that really he won't have been able to participate in World Cup qualification in what really is he's kind of in the peak of his powers at the moment, isn't he? He's just his domestic form's excellent. What he's doing what he's pending to do in the ISL coming up, I'm sure he'll have another cracking season. So from his point, there'll be some disappointment at not being able to represent his nation across this period of the pandemic. But I anticipate he'll be he'll be in and around that squad for a long time, to come and contribute to Fijian football. We can ask some of the players that we get on, really, what they've heard and what they think what their thoughts are on it. It'd be good to sort of get their thoughts and their insight from the players themselves, from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, I was going to say straight from the horse's mouth, exactly. And it'll be interesting, and we'll try and bring that content to you with our OFC players that will be coming on the show. We've got 3 lined up from some of those nations that we've spoken about, which would be great to have. Obviously, Mo Rajani doesn't play for Tonga anymore, but it'll be interesting to get his experience of what it is like playing the few and far between games in that region. Cesar Ziola, who we fully expect to be in and around the New Caledonia side, and we are also happy to say that Alwyn Comalong, the Papua New Guinea captain, has also said he will come on the show at some point as well, which will be absolutely fantastic to speak to those 3 players and find out more about what's going on. But for now and for today, as football fans, we simply don't know. We're excited to find out. And as you said, Rai, when it does come out, we'll be straight on it. And in the build-up to the games, we'll be doing similar to we have with the SAF Championship final, for example, and really doing in-depth previews of each team that's competing. I personally would love an 11-team mini-league. I don't see it happening, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'd love that as well, mate. As we said, it would be so good. But you know what? I just want to see those qualifiers. I want to see those teams again. We want to see new international heroes stamping their name on FIFA World Cup qualification.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting. We are poised to find out. We are keen to find out. That is all for this discussion on the future of Oceanic football. Do like, do comment, do subscribe, and check out our other socials as well, all at DNQ Football, as you would have seen going across the bottom of the screen. We're loving the engagement at the moment, so please, to everyone out there who does watch, do drop a comment and do get in touch. It's been absolutely fantastic. And excitingly, we are just over a week away from our next interview on the show as well. Joshua Frederick Charlery, the captain of the Cayman Islands, will be joining us next Friday, the 29th, to talk about his experiences of representing his country against some of the toughest opposition that the region has to offer, as well as a recent move to Finland, believe it or not, to compete in the Finnish league. So we're very much looking forward to having Joshua on the show. We hope that you can tune in for that as well. And from all of us at D&Q, what is left to say but thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching DNQ. We hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit this button below to subscribe, or one of these 2 buttons to watch another one of our videos. It's been great to have you with us. We'll see you next time.